Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hello, welcome back everyone to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan along with Anthony, and today is episode 60. We have a very special episode for number 60. We are ranking our top 10 horror movies of the 2010s. What's up, Ant?
How's it going? This is a biggie. This is a huge episode.
I feel like we say that every time we do a ranking episode. We just get
worst.
so stressed out. It's always a longer episode, but I love doing them. I can't wait to see your list. You're right, this is a biggie because the 2010s, there was some really great horror coming out. Not only original horror, but, franchise horror. So, yeah, I'm excited to get into these lists. This is episode 60. We released this on Halloween week, so happy Halloween, everyone. I believe we're releasing this a couple days before Halloween. Before we get into it, we'll just shout out our last episode we released last week, which was Halloween 2018. So go check that out. And that's a 2010s horror, so we'll see if that makes our list. Spoiler alert, it probably will because it's Halloween.
Another one.
Yeah. Yeah. What, are you still tinkering over there?
There's so much. I could tinker for the next week and a half and still not have a list, so let's just do it.
Yeah. I started this list. We came out with our schedule a little bit before October. We knew we were doing this for probably about a month now. I feel like I started this list a few weeks ago, and I was still right up until a couple hours ago tinkering with it. So, yeah, I'm just paranoid that I'm going to miss something. I think I have everything covered, and I think I'm solid. I have a lot of honorable mentions. Listeners know that every time we do a list like this, we have to have honorable mentions because it would just make our heads explode if we didn't. So we'll get to those first. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we get into these lists?
No, I just really appreciate you guys following us on our journey back. I know we took a little break and we've been doing pretty consistent since we've been back with viewership. Just keep it up. Subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to our social media, share our episodes. And this is going to be a fun one. So we want to hear your takes because my top 10 is so fluctuating with this. So I'm just curious to see everyone different tastes. Like I'm looking at my honorable mentions. I'm like, oh, should have that been on my top 10? So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, and what I did was for my top 10, I included the years they came out, but I just included like the domestic US theatrical release year because I know some of them had like festival premieres, like the years might be a little messed up. So 2010s are based off the domestic theatrical release date that they came out for me.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know. I didn't check that. I'm pretty sure all of mine are actually 2010s for like theatrical release. I don't think
I like some of mine like
dates.
They came out like on a festival in 2014 but released in theaters in 2015. So no matter what they qualify, but I just like from my brain I put the year.
No, I'm looking at like the ones like I have a couple from the end of the decade and a couple from the beginning, but I think they still came out in theaters, so I think we're good there. But either way, I mean,
yeah, we're fine. I mean,
should be fine. Any disclaimers? We usually have disclaimers when we do these lists. I'm pretty good. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, I think.
I literally started with the list of 125 movies, and I had to narrow it down to 10, and I don't feel, like I told Nolan before we started recording, I'm only really confident in my number one. So, I mean, like, again,
yeah,
some days I feel different. So, my number one will always be my number one, but the other ones, there's so many fucking bangers. So, no, let's just get in it.
All right, let's go. Yeah, this is going to be long. So, why don't we go ahead and start with our honorable mentions? I have about a dozen of them. Sorry, guys, I know it's a lot, but I just couldn't leave any of them off. We'll just rattle them off. Why don't you just kind of kick us off, and you can talk about like 2 or 3 of them real quick, and then I'll discuss a couple, and we'll just go from there.
All right, so I have a couple. We talked about our last year, our Halloween episode. I have Haunt from 2019 on the list. That's a gritty, like dark kind of festive Halloween movie, and I like when it gets dark. I have Green Room from 2016 on my list. You know, the great late Anton Yelchin. That was a fucking hardcore, gruesome punk rock horror movie. I loved it so much. I have The Killing of a Sacred Deer on my honorable mentions from 2017. You know, Nicole Kidman, Colin Farrell. I'm blanking on the new guy's name who's everywhere now, but he was so good in that movie, like eating the spaghetti. It freaked me the fuck out. Such a great one. That's the first couple. I have The Invitation from 2016. I don't even know if Nolan you've seen that, but it's a really slow burn, fucked up, like stressful movie that has me on the edge of the seat from start to finish. So that's the first little batch right there. But yeah, those are fucking so upset that they're not on my list.
Solid first batch. I also have Haunt on my honorable mentions, so that's cool. We kind of start there on the same page. Green Room I don't have. I've only seen that once, so I left it off. It was really fucking good, though. Really cool. I can't wait to revisit that. What was the third one you said? Killing of Sacred Deer?
Yes.
I have not seen that movie. I've never seen
We're
that.
covering
So,
it. We're fucking covering
yes,
it.
I gotta put that on the list. Okay.
And you know I like my fucked up shit. So
and I don't know anything about it either, so
yeah.
I would be going in blind. So that's pretty cool. And then The Invitation, I love The Invitation.
Oh, okay, good.
It's
so
not. I didn't put it on my list anywhere, but that's a good pick. That's a really good pick. That's a fucking great movie. It really
it's so good.
It had me on the edge of my seat. It makes you question what's really going on. It was really good.
Just
Definitely
for a
an
little
underrated
taste
gem
of
for anyone.
Killing of a Sacred Deer, it's a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, so it goes weird if you've seen it. You know, he's
yeah.
But it's my favorite one of his.
Cool. Yeah, check that out. All right. I'll rattle off a few. Starting off with, I think, another underrated movie is Grave Encounters from 2011. Love Grave Encounters. It balances that humor and the spookiness. I feel like the ending, especially the third act, gets really fucked and really cool. Mm-hmm. So definitely check that out if you're into like haunted ghost stories and stuff. That's really cool. Not quite horror, but it's a comedy horror. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Yeah.
My favorite parody of all time in terms of horror, I would say. It's didn't quite make the list, but it's a fucking banger. I love throwing that on whenever I'm bored. It's so fun. And I said Haunt. I'll also shout out one of my favorite found footage from the decade, and that's Creep, released in 2014. I'll say Creep 2 but as well, but I guess the both of them, because I really do like the sequel, but especially the first one really gave me the creeps, so I thought it was aptly titled. But those are a few of mine. Why don't you rattle off a few?
Co-sign all those. Tucker and Dale, fucking Creep, Grave Encounters. The first one's a banger, the second one sucks, but the first one's so good.
Oh, I like the second one, how it went like super meta
for me.
It was really wow. Okay,
I know, and I liked meta, so that's weird.
It's not quite as good, but I actually enjoyed it. Yeah.
But those are those are also all my honorable mentions. You haven't said any of my top 10 yet though, so this is fun.
Okay.
I'll do another batch, and this one, the first one's killing me that I didn't include it, and I'm like second guessing. But You're Next from 2013.
Okay.
Fucking love that movie. It's so good. I mean, one of the great modern badass final girls. She's so fucking awesome. Erin.
She was on your top 10, right?
She was in my my top 10 final girls. She was. Shawnee Vincent. I saw her at one of the conventions, and she's fucking awesome. I had The Devil's Candy, which is from 2017. It's a really fucked up, demonic, like rock and roll movie. It has Ethan Embry in it. So damn good. I don't know if you've seen the original Goodnight Mommy from 2015. We're covering that. It's really good. I don't want to say too much, but the premise is about kids staying with their mom and everything's not what it seems. So creepy and so unsettling. This next one might hurt you, but It Follows is an honorable mention from.
Okay. Yeah.
2015.
What did you rank that? What was your score on that?
It was an 8 something. It was like a mid 8 or something, I believe, or maybe low 8. I know it was in the 8s. Okay. But again, I love that movie. But if you watch our episode, I have like slight issues with the finale. Mm-hmm. I know I'm in the minority on that, but I have. But I'm also really excited for the sequel.
I'm happy it made your it made it to the episode for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. There's this other one with Ethan Embry called Cheap Thrills. I don't know if you've seen this. It's from 2014. It's almost like, it's not like Truth or Dare, but it's almost like you won't do this, you won't do that, and it's Cheap Thrills. But the ending, it's a fun comedy until it's not, and the ending is so dark, and I love it so much. It's on my list for us to cover.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
it's so fucked up, and I love it. I'll just and two more quick. The Guest from 2014. I mean, fucking love that movie. Micah Monroe again on my honorable mentions. It's so good. It's a throwback to Carpenter movies. I love the ending of that movie. It's just a blast of a movie. If you guys haven't watched that, you need to watch it immediately. Dan Stevens is so damn good as the villain in that movie. And then my last one, Two Punch. That's another one that hurts, but It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2 are honorable mentions.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love
you got
them
Pennywise
specifically
on you, on your body. Wow.
I know.
I'm actually,
Specifically
that's
in Chapter
the
2.
first shocker for me.
Yeah, and in Chapter 2, I have a soft spot for. I know people like are a little harsh on it, but I think that movie does great in the thrills and the emotions. So yeah, that one-two punch. So sad.
Okay, that was a lot. So you're next. Same honorable mention for me.
Okay,
great movie, released in 2011. I also have It. It didn't quite crack the top 10 for me. Honorable mention. It. I kind of just lumped them both together for you, like you did. I also have. I think that's it actually for our overlaps. Let me look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you might have a couple
let me
more
just rattle off the few more. Yeah. Autopsy of Jane Doe didn't quite make the top 10. That was so close. So close. I fucking love that movie. It is so good. That's a great one if nobody's seen it.
It's fucking awesome.
The Lodge, I love The Lodge. I love a dark ending. We both love a dark ending. That's a good one. It's just not something I can watch all the time because I would.
And I think you might get a pass. That actually was ended up being released in 2020, so I'll give you a pass for not having.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have 2019 listed, so okay, good. I'm glad it's not on my top 10 then. I have VHS 2, my favorite VHS from the franchise, and I know that was on my top 10 of franchises. So I had to represent with VHS 2. That was, I believe, 2013.
Yeah,
and I have Shutter Island. Shutter Island was on my top 10. I removed it just because it's kind of borderline. It's I don't really consider it it is a horror, but it's more of a mystery suspense thriller. So. But it's an incredible movie. I still remember seeing that in theaters. I believe I saw it with probably you because I think I went with friends. And maybe it was you and a couple of our friends. And I remember seeing the ending and we were discussing it in the ride home. It was like, oh, what do you think? What do you think? It was such a cool movie. And then two more real quick. These are big ones. But the first one is Get Out. Just didn't quite crack the top 10 for me. We discussed Get Out in a previous episode. Go check out our review of Get Out. We both love that movie. It's just not quite an all-timer for me. So it just didn't quite crack the top 10. And then another big one that people really love is Midsommar. Midsommar didn't quite crack the top 10 for me. And that's about it for my honorable mentions. You're done with yours?
I'm just going to rattle off a couple tiny ones quick, but those are all great. I co-sign everything you said. There's one on there that I'm kind of bummed that's not on your top 10, but we'll get to it. I agree with Get Out. We covered Get Out. It's a great movie. It's my favorite of the Jordan Peele trilogy, so obviously none of them are appearing, but it's just not an all-timer, and again, it has that horror.
Well, it's the only one to it. I think it's the only. Oh wait, Us is in 2019.
Came out in 2019.
Yeah, you're right.
But just so we can get to it, I'll just start off a couple. I promise. The one I have there's one sequel in my top 10. The rest are non-sequels. But Final Destination 5 is such a good ending to the franchise for the time being. That ending, I remember my jaw was on the floor when I was in the theater. I literally yelped like a little girl. I was so happy how they tied it in. It was so good. Yeah. But then just because it's in the talk now with Longlegs, Osgood Perkins, in my opinion, his best movie is The Black Coat's Daughter. So fucked up. Even that's top tier, better than Longlegs for me. It's so messed up. Emma Roberts, Kiernan Shipka are so good in that movie. So I don't know if you've seen that, but we'll have to cover it. And then just to give kudos to Mike Flanagan, the original Ouija was so bad, and he came back with Ouija Origin of Evil and made an awesome prequel, which turned me completely around on that 1-2 punch of a franchise. I remember walking out of the first one, this is fucking teeny bopper trash. And I'll give a shout out to Terrifier. The OG started this fucking new clown who's one of the great horror icons. And again, Nolan and I have talked about, we haven't ranked it or the trilogy yet, but the OG Terrifier is the scariest one, no matter how you put it. It's scary. And then just do a gothic horror in there. I really love Crimson Peak. I love my Crimson Peak. That's a really good dark gothic horror romance. And I'm not usually into that stuff, but yeah, I love it.
I, believe it or not, because I love my gothic horror, I have never seen Crimson Peak.
Dude.
It has been on my list for years, and I've just never gotten around to it. It's.
Dude,
I don't know
it's
why.
up your
I don't know
alley.
why. I know it is. I know it looks great, and I just have never watched it yet. I just keep putting it on the
What?
back burner.
Real
Yeah,
quick,
yeah. So,
have you seen Upgrade, the Lee 1L directed
oh
movie?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Love Upgrade.
I
Yes.
love that's, but I just want, because that's my favorite Lee 1L like movie. It doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
Yeah, that's. I wouldn't consider that horror
Yeah,
though.
it's
That's
like
not
sci-fi,
yeah.
and it's weird that I like, because like
Yeah.
a sci-fi like into it. But yeah,
I was
no
actually just
Krampus,
talking about
guys,
that
no
movie
nothing.
today with a coworker because we were talking about
I
sci-fi
fucking love
movies.
it.
I love
It's so
Upgrade.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always forget how fucking bleak the ending is.
Well, that's why I love
It's
it. So
it's
good.
great. Yeah.
But there's so
Yeah.
many more honorable mentions, guys. I'm not going to waste time. You want to get to the good stuff, the top 10. I mean, I didn't even put Krampus on it. I think Life is a great horror sci-fi with Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds. That's underrated in my opinion. It's Overlord's fucking badass, that movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's bloody fun. But yeah, I mean, Gerald's Game. I mean, fuck. I can go all day, but let's get into it. I left so many goodies off.
All right.
So many
Okay.
goodies.
Let's kick it off then. Without further ado, this is
Yes.
our top 10 horror movies of the 2010s. I will go first.
Oh, okay.
My number 10. Oh, did you want to go first?
No, I'm just nervous.
Okay.
I'm like, this
Okay.
is my top 10. Is this real?
All right, here we go. My number 10, released in 2013, is Evil Dead.
Hell yeah.
Evil Dead, my favorite of the franchise. I am not a huge Evil Dead guy, like the ones from, the 80s and stuff. I do like them. I think they're fun. But I think this one, is it considered a remake? Or are we still calling it a remake? Or is it kind of, I know that's kind of like a hot topic. People are calling it like it's in universe. It's
Yeah.
not quite a remake. I consider it a remake because it's like, they're in the cabin and stuff. And so I don't know. But it's called Evil Dead. It's not called Evil Dead anything else, but it's just Evil Dead 2013. So I'm going to call it the remake. I love that movie. It is so awesome. It has a final girl that's not a final girl. That's the villain that turns into a final girl, which is awesome. I love my villains. And when you get like the 2-for-1 punch there, it's great. Some of the kills are awesome. It's super creepy. It's gory, of course, because it's Evil Dead. The ending just stuck with me from the first time I saw it, and it's so rewatchable for me. It's one of the most rewatchable movies on this list for me. It's number 10, but to no fault of its own. I mean, I'm just not a huge fan of that franchise in general, but it is my favorite of the franchise, and it had to. I was debating leaving it off, but every time I went to a different movie to replace it with, I was like, I can't. It's just so rewatchable, and it's so good. I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I just had so much fun with it. Like the first time I watched it, it is great. If you haven't checked it out, anyone who isn't like a big Evil Dead fan, maybe check that one out first before you go to the other entries, because I feel like it's a really solid entry point into the franchise.
I mean, Evil Dead. It's also my favorite Evil Dead movie, so it's up there.
It's also your
You're starting
favorite?
off hot. Yeah, you're starting off.
Yeah,
hot.
we are. I mean, dude,
Holy
it's a
shit,
lot of
I love
movies.
it.
Top 10.
No, I love
That's
it.
you know.
I love it so much. Great pick. I'm all about it. Yeah, no need to say anything else. It's up there with one of the greats of the 2010s, and it's a bloody blast. I remember having it was like a riot in the theater watching that with
Yeah.
the crowd. It was so much
Yep.
fun. So, you starting off big. All right, I like it. My number 10 is one of your honorable mentions. So I was kind of bummed, and it's
Okay.
movie that has, every time I show it to someone, like, yeah, that was fucked up and creepy, and I just love when it has an effect like that on people. And the ending, it doesn't like mince on being dark. It's a slow burn, but it also has like some of the mainstream horror tropes as well, which I think it's a good blend. It's a creepy horror movie. It's The Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016. I'm fucking obsessed with this movie. I remember like the first time I saw it, I watched it at night by myself. I'm like, oh, this is creepy. This is creeping me out. I love that it's just a father and son story at the same time. It just keeps you on the edge of the seat. Andre Overdahl, he's like a name in horror that I'm obsessed with, and I can't wait to see him do more. He has such a good sense of direction and just atmosphere. And if you guys haven't seen this movie, it just pretty much, once they're trapped in that morgue, it doesn't let up, not only with the mystery, but the scares, going around a corner, you're not knowing what's going on, the sounds, that stupid bell will never not creep me out, the whole movie. I just think it doesn't even let up on the gore either. It's like an R-rated movie that's a supernatural movie, and it just goes for it So I'm obsessed with this movie. I mean, Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox in a movie together. You don't really need much more. It's fucking awesome. So yeah, I'm obsessed with The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Everything you said, I love that movie so much. That was the one that I was really debating between that and Evil Dead. It was
Okay.
flip-flopping for me. So just so you know, that was like
All right.
probably would be number 11 for me.
Hell
So
yeah.
it's right there. Yeah. Great movie. Great movie. People haven't seen it. Okay, let's move along. You mentioned a fifth entry into a franchise. I believe it was Final Destination. This movie reminds me a lot of Final Destination. It is also a fifth entry. In 2014, it is Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones.
Okay.
An all-timer paranormal movie. It's I don't want to give away my franchise rankings because that's going to be a big episode, but it's a fucking great movie. It is the most, I will say this, it is the most rewatchable. It's the one I rewatched the most out of all of them. It is so, talk about a breath of fresh air after going from Paranormal Activity 4, which was a downer.
Yeah.
It was okay, but it was trending in the wrong direction, that franchise, and they came out with this one. They didn't call it 5, they called it The Marked Ones. We thought it was like a complete spin-off where it was just in the same universe. You know, it takes place in a different, state and all that. We didn't know where the timeline fit, but it reminds me of what you said, Final Destination, because that ending, the way it brings it back to the original. And, I don't want to spoil anything for people that haven't seen it, but I'm sure everyone's seen The Marked Ones because it was a pretty big movie. But the way it ties in to the originals at the end is just chef's kiss, and it's genuinely scary. I remember the first time seeing it, I was really, really creeped out when they're going through some of those tunnels and stuff, and then when they're going downstairs to the neighbor's apartment. So good, so good. I forget the director who directed that.
The great Christopher Landon, man. Happy Death Day.
Landon, that's
Death
right.
Day
It was
you.
Christopher
Freaky.
Landon. You're right. I knew I was blanking on him. I couldn't remember, but he just crafted an impeccable movie, and it kind of reinvigorated that franchise, at least for me.
It should have been, I'll say this every time, great pick. It should have been the last one in the franchise, not that Ghost Dimension shit, before they brought it back with the new one. I can't remember the name of the new one, but I actually like that one. But yeah, this should have been the end, not the Ghost Dimension. This was like you said, the way it intertwines back to the first one is genius. Like, I remember going to, I'm like, oh, it's like, we're on number 5. It's not going to be great. And I walked down, like, holy fuck, they put the work in and they brought it back. And they ended it so well. So again, major kudos to Christopher Landon. I think he also wrote it. He's great. He usually does like fun, campy horror, but this one, like you said, it had its funny moments and fun moments, but it got down and dirty and it got creepy and scary towards the end. I'm always on the edge of my seat with the finale of that movie. Yeah, that's a great pick. It's one of my, again, we'll do a ranking for that franchise, but it's also one of my favorite Paranormal Activity movies. And I'm just looking at his filmography alone, what he did in the 2010s. I'm like, damn, I love Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. It's so fun. But yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, it's all these are, we agree on, these are all-timers. These are great, awesome movies, so you're not going to go wrong.
Yeah.
My number 9, though, I don't know if you're going to be mad at how low it is, but it's my top 10. It's Sinister from 2012 is my number 9. I was kind of struggling whether to leave it on or not, but I fucking love that movie. Bagul, Scott Derrickson, Ethan Hawke. You can't go wrong. It's so fucking good. What really pushed it over the edge for me is those fucking videotapes make the movie, and I don't know if any other really like supernatural demonic horror movie has those moments where you're just on edge waiting to see what happens. And that, the lawnmower scene is one of the best jump scares of the 2010s in my opinion. It's just a really, really, really dark and sinister movie. And I love that, it's those damn kids. It's always the fucking damn kids. So I just love the way it wraps up. I like that it doesn't cheap out and have a safe ending, like the family gets killed. And I love my dark endings. So yeah, Sinister is one of the great supernatural horror movies, so it just had to make my top 10.
Cool. I'm glad. I remember we covered that as well on the podcast, so go check out that episode. You had a lower score than I did, so I wasn't sure if that was going to make your top 10, so I'm really glad it did. So that's cool, number 9. Awesome. Okay, number 8. This was an honorable mention for you. Number 8, released in 2014, is It Follows.
Okay.
Yeah, It Follows. Definitely was going to be somewhere in my top 10. This was one of the movies I was shuffling around a bit. It's so rewatchable. Again, you're going to hear me say that a lot. All these movies on my top 10 are just all rewatchable. So, but it's so unique. It's such a cool concept. I remember seeing it for the first time, going online, and like, there was like posts and blog posts about like different ways to escape the creature. We talked. This is another episode that we did cover this movie, guys. So definitely check this one out as well, because that was a fun episode. But yeah, I love this. I mean, Micah Monroe. It was my introduction to Micah Monroe, so she killed it. It's such a cool, unique, and talk about jump scares. The tall man in the hallway, that scene is one of the great jump scares, at least for me in the 2010s. Such a cool movie. I really like the ending. I know you have issues with the ending, but I think it ended pretty cool, and I'm so excited for the second one. I think they're really going to do a good job, and they're going to do it right. So I'm really, really excited for that.
The concept alone just makes this movie unique and like worthy of so much recognition. Like, I mean, I love horror movies. I love all of them, but this is just so special because it is different and unique.
The concept and the old school vibes. It has that old school 70s, 80s vibes to it.
And the score, dude, the score is so good in the movie.
It is, yeah.
Oh my god. But
that
yeah,
opening scene. Oh, that opening scene.
I love that's one of the
yeah.
If we did an opening scenes of the 2010s, that would be in my top 10. It's so good. Like, what the fuck
we should
is
do
happening?
that. Opening scenes. All time though.
Yeah,
we
got that's on the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great pick. I can't wait for They Follow, and I'm so happy that Mike and Monroe and the director are both coming back. I love these picks so far. And I love that we also haven't overlapped yet. But we're about to, because my number 8's Evil Dead 2013.
Nice.
I fucking love this movie. It's my favorite Evil Dead movie. I'm a huge Fede Alvarez fan. I know some people thinks he goes too hardcore, too mean. That's why I fucking love him. I mean, Evil Dead, don't breathe. I didn't see Alien Romulus yet, but I'm really excited to watch that. He even produced that new Texas Chainsaw movie, which I thought was a lot of fun. But Evil Dead is his movie, man. Evil Dead is his crowning achievement thus far. It's so bloody. It's so over the top, but it's not like over the top like in my opinion, like Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, which I still love, but they're like kind of a little like over the top too campy. I think this just blends the Evil Dead concept into a really dark and gritty horror movie. And I just fucking am obsessed with Jane Levy. I mean, she is a great fucking horror final girl, and she just kills it in this movie, being the demon. And then in the end, I mean, how am I not going to put this in the top 10 when a final girl says, "Feast on this motherfucker"? I love my final girls, and that line alone like gets me jumping out of my seat. Go back to hell, bitch. I like cheer every time I watch it. It's mean. It's a mean movie, and you think that her and her brother are going to get out together, but it just goes the dark route. And to what you were saying earlier, it's technically, I mean, people say it's a remake. It's technically in universe. It's a reboot. You have that Bruce Campbell cameo at the end, so it kind of like says, hey, we're part of the timeline, but it's a reboot for all, purposes. But if it was like a full-on remake, it would be also in my top 10 horror remakes. But yeah, this is an all-timer great. I remember seeing this in the theater, and again, everyone went apeshit for it. When she like licks the knife with her tongue and then makes out with her with the blood. It's just like, what are we watching right now? I fucking love it. I'm obsessed. So yeah, Evil Dead 2013 is also in my top 10. So our first overlap.
Cool. I just watched Alien Romulus. I will say Evil Dead is still my favorite of his.
Okay.
Alien Romulus was really cool. It was really good. And
good. That's good to hear.
He has a nice touch to that franchise as well. He puts his stamp for sure, but Evil Dead I still prefer.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Moving along, number 7. This is a biggie for a lot of people. This is, when you talk about mainstream horror, I mean, this is it. It's 2013, The Conjuring.
Okay.
The Conjuring at number 7 for me. I know horror snobs are going to stick their nose up at me, but this movie is made a killing at the box office, and it's popular for a reason. I mean, it is so good. I talk about jump scares. It has some great effective jump scares. I think that the subgenre of, haunted houses is very flooded, very oversaturated. It's not my favorite, but this is such a good ghost story, and the actors are amazing. And I mean, obviously, it did something right because we have the whole Conjuring universe now. You can say what you want about the Conjuring universe and some of those movies, but the first one kicked it off with a bang. It's still rewatchable to this day. I still have a really fun time watching it, even though it came out over 10 years ago. Again, like all these other movies, I remember seeing this in theaters and just freaking out. I was like, wow, this is a really, really cool story and cool performances, cool scares. It's a popcorn horror. I know it's popcorn horror, but I have to give him kudos. It's an all-timer for me, and it's great. I love The Conjuring so much.
It brought horror back into the mainstream. That movie, like it like started the resurgence of like horror is the it genre, like in 2013. And don't apologize, because popcorn horror is also fun and a blast. And who cares? Film snobs can suck it. Like, these are awesome movies. So
Yep.
yeah, I completely
You heard
agree.
it here first.
James Wan is the modern horror master. He's creating some like, he does the R-rated hardcore stuff like Saw and the wacky stuff like Malignant, and then he goes to a classic ghost story like The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2, and it's like he can do it all. Great pick.
Yep.
No, these are all timers, man. My number 7 is a huge one for me. It's my favorite movie from 2019. It is Dr. Sleep. Mike Flanagan,
nice.
my boy,
Nice.
Mike Flanagan. I just love Mike Flanagan's style because he doesn't only focus on the scares, but like we've talked about several times, to me, like, character is so important, character development, and I don't think anyone does character development like Mike Flanagan. And the emotion in his movies, it always gets me. And when it comes to Dr. Sleep, it's technically is a legacy sequel, and I think that he creates something special because it's not just a movie full of homages. When we get to them, they're awesome, and I think it's done so well, but he's really focused on the new story first. I think he blends it in by the time we get to the Overlook Hotel. The time we get there, we're ready for the homages because we spent so much time just building our own story. And I'll never forget being in the theater in IMAX when they're driving up to the hotel and the dun, dun.
Yeah.
I swear to God, all my hairs were sticking up on my arms, and I'm just like, I'm witnessing a masterpiece right now. This is fucking amazing. And talk about going hardcore. Again, a lot of the topic on Twitter right now was like, you kids getting killed in horror movies. I'm like, it's horror. And the horror scene in this, the people are talking about Terrifier 3, I don't think it even matches how disturbing the scene is in Dr. Sleep. When Rebecca Ferguson, Rose the Hat, kills Jacob Tremblay. I mean, they stay on that. You might not see it, but you see blood shooting on his face, and he's screaming in pain. And that kid does so good. I will never forget, people walked out of the theater in that scene. I'm like, this is horror. This is crazy good. I love it. I mean, Rose the Hat was an honorable mention on my modern villains. She's so damn good. Rebecca Ferguson kills it. Ewan McGregor as Danny is awesome. I think the ending is beautiful and emotional. It's just one of the best, in my opinion, Stephen King adaptations, and one of my favorite Mike Flanagan movies. It's so good. I mean, you can't go wrong with Mike Flanagan in horror. And actually, this movie made me really excited for him to take on the reins of the new Exorcist movie. So I'm can't have this in my top 10. It's perfect. I love this movie.
That's awesome. Co-sign everything. And talk about Mike Flanagan was just kind of coming out with banger after banger. I mean, you talk about Hush, the Oculus, two ones that I could have definitely had on my honorable mentions.
Dude, Gerald's Game, he did that too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We'll just move right along because number 6 is Dr. Sleep for me.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love this movie too. It is just impeccable. I remember the same thing, man. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, holy shit, this is a masterpiece. This is awesome. And yes, I will admit it, it needs The Shining, but of course it needs The Shining because it's a sequel to The Shining. But I think he really blended this story and crafted it so expertly. So I think it's a masterclass in pacing. It's a long movie. It's over 2 hours,
long.
right? It's just
like
over 2 hours.
Pushing like it's
220
pushing 2
or
hours and
something.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
And the director's cut's even longer, but it
needs
better.
every bit of it
Yeah.
because the way it's paced by the time you get to the Overlook, it's I don't know, it's like an indescribable feeling. It was like, especially to me, The Shining is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's great. It's great. Everything you said, Rose the Hat, all the characters, Ewan McGregor as Danny was a perfect casting. I mean, he added so much depth to that character and so many layers. I have not read the book, but I believe he did a great job of, this is what I've heard, of blending the book with the movie The Shining and the book Dr. Sleep and all that. So I think he did a good job there from what I heard. So just kudos to him to really take on something like that. I mean, what director would even have the balls to take that on? Let alone just absolutely kill it. So yeah, the great movie. That's number 6 for me. Awesome.
Just to comment on what you said quick about like blending The Shining, I believe in the book, like they don't even go back to the Overlook Hotel, but he did that. he know. I mean, I know Stephen King has issues with like The Shining, but
Yeah.
he knows that. Shining is one of the greatest movies ever made. So he had the balls to be like, oh, there's people who like that's an all timer, but I also want to pay respect to Stephen King and adapt this book. So like you said, the way he intertwined it is just genius. So you can't beat it. All right, hell yeah. Well, you talked about film snobs, and this one is also popcorn horror, and I don't give a fuck because it's one of the best PG-13 horror movies. It's Insidious is my number 6. Insidious from 2011. And I mean, if I'm allowed to, I would even throw in Insidious Chapter 2 because I think that's one of the great part 2s. So they're a 1-2 punch for me, but you can't have Insidious Chapter 2 without the first one because the second one's so reliant on everything that happens in the first one. But yeah, I mean, you have Patrick Wilson, it's James Wan, James Wan again. He's directing a PG-13 horror movie and killing it. Rose Byrne, I think, is the backbone of part 1 and part 2. And it's just an old school, fun, pop-out jump scare fest, but the jump scares are awesome. You actually care about the characters. I mean, you care about the kids, Lorraine, you have Dalton, you care about the grandma. I mean, it's just a movie about a family who's going through a haunted house, and it's fucking a blast. I love the further. It is a funhouse ride, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's like the throwback to the Poltergeist. It's just awesome, and I think James Wan killed it with part 1 and part 2, and I will always champion fun popcorn horror because there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm obsessed with the Insidious movies, and it was also made my top 10 franchises, Insidious. But specifically part 1 and part 2 for me, there's the other ones don't touch part 1 and part 2. But yeah, I remember seeing part 1 on opening night, and the jump scares were just getting everyone. People were jumping out of their seats, screaming in a respectful way. Everyone was just having fun. It felt like we were on a haunt ride, but we're just watching a movie. So I loved it. I love Insidious so much.
Great. It's not going to be on my top 10.
Yeah, I know it's not.
We discussed this. We had an episode on this, and it was a fun episode. We disagree on this, but I still like the movies. I still like the franchises. They're just not quite, all-timers for me, top 10 for me. So that's awesome. I knew it was going to be on your list, so that's number 6 for you, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So now we're moving right along. We're chugging right along. Top 5. Here we go. And this is where it gets pretty dicey for me.
Yeah, this is
similar to you. I was pretty solid in my number 1, but 5 through 2 especially, it's like it's like picking my babies,
You're gonna be shocked at my number 5. It's a weird one. It's a weird pick.
Is it a weird one? Okay.
Yeah,
this is a weird one too. My number 5 is out there too.
Okay.
My number 5 is 2019's The Lighthouse. Okay. I love this movie so much. You know me, I'm a Robert Eggers fanboy. I love all of his movies, and The Lighthouse is one of my favorites. It is so cool. It is a movie that I didn't think was going to be as rewatchable for me as it is. I mean, it's such a weird storytelling. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's really impossible to describe what you're watching. You have to just watch this movie. It's just 2 guys operating a lighthouse and their descent into madness. And it's incredible. I mean, what can you say? Robert Pattinson, William Dafoe, and it's just them just playing off each other, just being insane together. I love it so much. I throw it on when I don't expect to, and I still enjoy it. It's great. It's black and white, which is awesome. I love a stylistic choice like that, which differentiates it from everything else. It is so good. I really want to do an Eggers. Maybe after Nosferatu, we'll do like an Eggers ranking because I want to hear your rankings of all of his movies. This will be his fourth or fifth.
I can't remember.
No, fourth.
The Witch,
right,
The Lighthouse, North.
Yep, the Northman, and then
Northman.
Northman. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be really cool. But yeah, The Lighthouse, man, The Lighthouse. If you haven't seen it, I highly, highly suggest it. It's kind of out there. It's kind of out there.
Everyone's cup of tea for sure.
It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's my cup of tea.
I love that both of our number 5s are like mine's a little more. I think, but I love that they're both weird and like not like the generic horrors are number 5s. But that's awesome. I really like The Lighthouse a lot. I don't think I ever watched it as much as you. That's why it's not going to be anywhere. But it's a cool, weird what the fuck mindfuck that's going on.
Rewatch it again, man. You'll have a good time.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. I do, like I said, I only watched it, I think, twice, so I have to rewatch it and see how I feel. But I don't
The
go back to it
monologues.
as often.
The monologues. William
Well, just them
Dafoe,
two
I mean,
alone.
just kills it.
Oh, yeah.
Kills it.
They play off each other so well. I think it's an acting showcase. So that's a good pick. I like a weird pick.
Yeah.
That is definitely. I remember seeing that in the theater. I'm like, what's going on? It's so good though. All right. Well, my number 5 is also a little weird psychological horror movie, but it was a big deal when it came out, and I didn't think I was gonna love it, but I fell in love with it. It has one of my favorite performances of the 2010s. It is Black Swan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Fucking love Black Swan from 2010. Natalie Portman, my girl, she owned it. It's just a really, really fucked up metaphor of obsession with being perfect because perfect is unachievable. And I think that's like a really cool kind of like message to put in a horror movie and all the weird, freaky things you can do with it. And Darren Aronofsky, he goes there and he does some weird, freaky things in this movie. I mean, when she starts bending and snapping, it's so fucked up. I remember when I'm like, oh, Winona Ryder's in this. And you have her like stabbing herself in the face. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? This is amazing. But I just love how you have this concept of a ballerina. It just goes like builds, and it goes like and people will say maybe it's not a full-on horror, but I think it is. It's a fucked up horror fever dream. And Natalie Portman, Mila Kunis is awesome in it. It's weird, it's hot, it's sexy, it's fucked up, and the ending again is so heartbreaking because this girl is only obsessed with one thing, and it's literally what kills her. So I just think it's a genius movie, and every time I watch it, I'm obsessed with the cinematography. It's, in my opinion, one of his best directed movies. The cinematography, the score is so good, everyone's killing it. But Natalie Portman, to me, this just made me like fall in love with her and think of her one of the great actresses. It's so good. If you guys haven't watched it in a bit or haven't seen it, watch it because you're gonna be in there for a psychological like ride through hell, and I'm obsessed with it. And I like the slow burn, and this is a great slow burn. So good, so good.
I learned something new. I did not know that you thought so highly of this movie.
Oh,
that's
I love
really
it.
cool. That was a big surprise for me. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. I got to rewatch it. I've seen it maybe once, and it was a long time ago.
Cool.
So, and I don't even know if I was in the right headspace for it. I don't really remember too much. So I'm actually really excited to go back. Yeah.
We'll
I didn't realize you were so high on that movie. Interesting.
Oh, I fucking love it. I'm obsessed with it.
Okay.
I went to see it, and I'm like, oh, I gotta take my parents, like my family, to see it. Like, this is so fucked up.
Really? Okay. Cool.
It's so good. I think I saw it like 3 or 4 times in the theater. That's how much I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. That was number 5. Okay, moving right along. Top 4. Number 4 is, this is big ones now. Number 5 was a weird pick, but this is a big one for me. 2019's Ready or Not, starring my girl Samara Weaving. Yeah.
I knew it would be in your top 10.
Oh, yeah, of course. I know it's going to come for you, too. Radio Silence. This is their best movie so far. It is just perfect in every way. Talk about rewatchability. You throw this on and you just have fun every single time. Samara Weaving kills it. She is one of my favorite Final Girls of all time. Go check out our Final Girls episode and you'll see where she ranks, but she is amazing. I'm trying to convince my wife to dress up as her. She loves the movie as well for Halloween. Did like the bloody bride at the end, when she's all bloody. She wants to. We just can't find the right dress for it. We've been trying for a couple years, but yeah, it's a great movie. It's awesome. If you haven't seen it, it's really fun. They balance just the campiness so well. Adam Brody is awesome in it. I love Adam Brody. He's one of my favorite actors. Yeah, he's great. It's so cool. And then the ending is like an all-timer ending for me. It's so fucking cool when they're all in the dining room and just heads start popping. It's just great. And because I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen. I was like,
did you think the curse was going to be like fake, or like you didn't know?
I didn't know. I was like, what direction are they going to go? Because nothing was off the table. Yeah, in that movie. And by the time you got to the end, it's like anything could happen. They could have played it a different way and it could have been a fake curse and it would have been just as funny. But I'm really glad that it was a real thing and everyone just fucking dies. It was just perfect. Perfect. Love this movie.
No, I'm bummed that it's not in my top 10, and the reason why I didn't mention it in my honorable mentions because I know we'd be talking about it in your top 10. I'm obsessed with this movie. I
It's
would
not.
agree.
What?
It's not in my top 10.
Oh my!
But I want it.
gosh.
It's one of my favorite horror comedies for sure.
Wow, that's
It's
like
so good.
that's the biggest shock for me. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's. I wish. That's what I'm saying. I grapple with so many of these movies. I'm like, fuck. I wish I could, but it just misses
It's
it.
fine.
I agree with you that it's. I mean, this is coming from a Scream guy. I agree with you. It's Radio Silence's best movie. They absolutely blended the characters, the horror, and the humor well. Like, I think this is their best directed movie as well. I just they were A+ game in this. I think after this, I don't know what happened, but they're still killing it, and it's timely because we officially got last week the announcement that not only is Ready or Not 2 happening, but it's Samara Weaving's coming back and Radio Silence is coming back. So bringing the team back. I'm curious to see where they're gonna go because obviously the first one ended on pretty much a final note, but they'll find something out. And again, Samara Weaving, I've been talking about several movies where like the female characters carry it because that's what happens in a lot of these horror movies. I mean, that girl Scream, like, and again, you're on her side immediately. She draws you in immediately with her charisma and just being down to earth. Like, you're immediately like, okay, I got this girl's back. Like, I will like fight to the death for her no matter what because
she seems like a very chill fish out of water with the rich family. Yeah, super relatable. I agree.
And her screams, dude, when she get at the end, it's just like, holy shit, I feel her pain. Again, we talked about it, like she is one of the great modern scream queens as well because you just can't beat her scream in these fucking movies. It's so good. And I'm so pumped to see them back. I'm really actually excited. I hope it's a really good 1-2 punch for them. One of the great horror comedies.
And fuck them kids. That's the theme.
Fuck them kids is the theme of this episode
Killing
as well.
kids.
I agree.
Yeah,
I love how she just punches them. I'm like, yes. And when they run down the hallway and they just explode, I'm like, yes, they did it to the kids too. They exploded. It's so good. Yeah, this movie's a blast. I mean, this movie is a blast. It's the definition of a blast. It's so funny.
That really shocks me. That really shocks me. I thought for sure.
I know. I wanted to, man.
Thought that was an all-timer for you. Wow.
My rest of them are going to be heat because I'm going to turn into like a mainstream boy for the rest, but whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. There's a reason. There's a reason they're mainstream, you know? You got to stick with your guns. Yeah.
But it's so funny that your number 4 is Ready or Not because we're going to stick with something that Radio Silence is related to, and my number 4 is Scream 4 from 2011. Obviously, it's Scream, so this is the only sequel that's like going to be on my list. Scream 4 is, I mean, it's Wes Craven's last movie he directed. If you guys know me, you know how special the franchise is to me. Scream 4 before Scream 5 and 6 came out was my least favorite Scream movie because nothing touches the OG. But going back to it and rewatching it, this movie might be one of the Scream movies that will age the best. With the motive and, Jill, fame. I mean, how many people, we have people TikToking and doing all this shit just like trying to get likes and be famous. And Jill Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson were coming up with this back in 2011 when social media was just starting out. So I think the line, I'll never forget, like, I don't need friends, I need fans. It's like how many people, the younger generation, are just eager for attention and like that now. So I think it's awesome. I love the theme that, you think it's going to be handed off to a new generation, but it's like, no. This is still about Sydney. This is the OG. Don't fuck with the original. So obviously, as a Sydney person, that made me so happy. I think Olivia's death scene is one of the most brutal in the franchise. Ghostface is really mean on the phone calls in this movie. I think the trio is used way better in 4 than they were in 5 and 6. Wes just knows how to balance characters, and I just think that it's the last time that we have our trio together in a movie because in 5 they're all in it, but they're never together in the same room, and it's just so special to me that Wes did 4 movies in my favorite franchise, and I did think it put it was like a return reunion special. I feel like Scream 4, it's not connected to Scream 1 through 3, and it's not connected to 5 or 6. It's just its own thing. It's like a check-in movie, like a reunion. I'm like, okay, this is a blast. It's fun. I think it goes a little too like scary movie-ish in a couple scenes, but other than that, I mean, it's a fucking all-timer for me. It's Scream. So yeah, I'm obsessed with Scream 4. It's so damn good. I love it.
That's cool. It didn't make my list. We've talked about this endlessly. I'm not as big as Scream guy as you. I do love Scream 4 though. Man. I love Scream 4. I really agree with you, how it's kind of its standalone entry. It's not quite into the original trilogy. It doesn't fit with the new ones. I love that about that, and I think Scream should kind of get back to that and have unique movies that don't fit within other movies so much. I know they all are going to be connected,
Right,
obviously.
they're all
but
same continuity, right?
yeah. So I love that it's like has its own unique vibe to it. I think it balanced the new characters with the returning characters so great. Every time I watch it, I'm very impressed with what Wes did. Nobody does, like you said, nobody does characters like Wes Craven, and that's something that's maybe missing in the new ones. You know,
For sure.
it's a really hard task to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's next to impossible when you have legacy characters with new characters. But you know, you have characters like Kirby, who was instantly a fan favorite. She's in the new ones. Right. She's returning because she was
her
so
little
popular.
Scene with the remakes. Talk about remakes. It's an all timer scene.
Yeah, Hayden Panettiere. Shout out to her. Yeah, you have obviously one of the greatest, awesome monologue ghost faces, Joe Roberts. It's a lot of people's number one ghost face. Go check out our Ghostface rankings. And shameless
so
plug.
Many episodes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great pick. That I'm glad that made your top 10 for sure. I mean, I knew it would, but I'm glad it made your top 4. Okay, here we go. Top 3. This is a movie we talked about earlier in the episode. Okay. This is Sinister, released in 2012. Okay. Love Sinister. It's an all-timer for me. It is just so gross and grimy. Every time I watch this movie, I feel like I need to take a shower. It is so dark and twisted. You talk about the videotapes. The videotapes are what take it over the top for me, but there are scenes in the house that are really, really disturbing. And Bogul, he is so creepy. He still gives me the creeps. I love that design so much. It is so cool. Yeah, Sinister, it's an all-timer for me. I don't know how much more we can say about the movie. We did cover it. You covered a lot about what makes it special. It's if you guys haven't seen it, it was just in the news because there was an updated rankings, I guess according to science, of the scariest movies of all time. And Sinister is still number 1 for the second year in a row, based on their study, whatever their study was, based on heartbeats and stuff. Yeah. The jump scare, the lawnmower jump scare is an all-timer. It's just amazing. I love all of the tapes. I think they're all awesome. I think it's such a unique concept. It's such a good movie. I love it so much. And Scott Derrickson, great director. I like The Black Phone a lot. Not quite at the same level as Sinister, but I'm excited to see him continue his venture into horror, the horror genre. I think he's a really solid director. And really, really fucking awesome movie.
Yeah, we definitely have to cover The Exorcism of Emily Rose because talk about him in directing. That's fucking awesome. But I like how he doesn't fully reveal. Like, I love how the first half is just like, ooh, Bagul's in the corner. Like, almost it's like if you don't catch it, you're not going to see it, but it makes it scary at the same time. I like how he takes his time to fully reveal him. I think it makes the ending and everything that more terrifying. Yeah, Sinister's awesome. And if you want to know how wrong it could have gone, watch Sinister 2. Because so you know how fucking awesome the first one is. It's an all-timer. Yeah, great pick.
They had the blueprint and they still fucked it up. I know. Yeah.
Ooh. I knew it would be up there for you.
And Ethan Hawke. Shout out to Ethan Hawke.
Oh, he's so good in horror.
Yeah.
All right, top 3. My number 3, again, you guys, I'm sticking with the biggies and the mainstreams. It's Halloween 2018, my number 3.
All right.
Because it's one of the movies that I rewatched. Again, I'm a big guy, like, criteria rewatchability, and I've watched Halloween 2018 endless times. It's the movie that brought slashers back to the mainstream again, like a few years ago, and how can I not give it its due and respect? We just covered it last week, so I don't want to say too much. Go watch that episode. I had so much fun talking with you about that. It's just the movie that brings Halloween back to basics. I don't say that in a bad way. We needed to have Halloween 2018 before we had Kills and Ends take risks, because we needed to get back to what makes it scary. Michael Myers looking good, looking creepy, and Laurie Strode. We needed it back, them two, to bring the franchise back. And I think, mixed with John Carpenter's score and David Gordon Green's directing and characters that we finally care about. Some of the later sequels, we had Resurrections. We don't care about so many characters in the franchise, but this brought it back to basic. Michael, Laurie, Michael Myers, Halloween Night, Haddonfield, boom. That's why Halloween the original worked. Simplistic. 2018 is simplistic. It's just a great throwback, to the OG, and it pays respect to fans of the OG. 40 years later, I'll never forget the hype that, up to this movie. It's one of the greats, and it's one of the movies I've been most excited to go see in the theater, like, in my lifetime. And I think obviously it took some time for me to like fully fall in love with it because of how much hype I had. But it's an awesome Halloween movie. It's a top, I think it's my fifth place for Halloween franchise. So, and that's my second favorite franchise, so it had to be up there. It's a huge, huge movie to me. And it's always gonna be special to me. And again, kudos David Gooder Green. I know you get so much hate, but you did good. You did good.
Yes, check that episode out, guys. Really proud of that episode. That was a longer one. It was like
Right.
about an hour and 45 minutes. We really get into
Yep.
the movie and talk about what we like and what some of our nitpicks were. My number 2 is Halloween, so we'll just roll right along.
Dude, we're pretty like we have a lot
Halloween,
of overlap.
a lot
on
of
this
overlap.
list.
Yeah. I mean, it's my favorite franchise of all time.
Mhm.
It's number 2. It could be number 1 if not for my number 1.
Do we
We'll
have the
get into
same
that.
number 1?
We definitely have the same number 1. I know we do. But yeah, now just going back to what you said, I really you're right. I never really framed it like that, but you said how David Gordon Green really, what did you say? He crafts these characters that we care about. One thing you could say, I agree. Even Halloween Ends, all 3 movies, the characters, they're memorable. They're very memorable compared to some of the other sequels. You really get a sense of the townsfolk in Haddonfield. So that, yeah, no, I'm stuttering because that's like a new revelation. I never really framed it like that, but yeah, you're right. He did such a good job because you think of, Halloween, it's a requel, it's a legacy sequel, returning characters, but no, there's a lot of new characters in this new trilogy as well that he really does a good job with, and that whether you like them or not, they're memorable. I mean, talk about divisive with some of these sequels. Halloween Ends, you get Corey Cunningham. I mean, you remember him. He's not forgettable. So I agree. And yeah, check out our episode. I don't want to gush too much about it because
Right.
we're really proud of that episode. I want you guys to check it out. But such a great movie. Return to form. You said back to basics. It's not really back to basics on the surface level because it does feel different than the original, but in a good way. Like, it is back to basics because it's Michael just stalking people and killing them.
It's not convoluted mess story.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't have no curses and you don't have any extra
Right.
stuff going on. It's just Michael breaks free again and he's on the hunt and he's killing people. And that's Laurie's trying to get him this time. It's simple, but it works so well and it's so brilliant. It's number 2. I mean, it's number 2 for an entire decade of horror. I mean, so good. What's your number 2? I'm really curious to hear your number 2 now.
You're gonna be in shock because again, I thought it was gonna be flip flop, but I'm the one who's like gonna get the snobs coming at me. It's The Conjuring. My number 2.
Oh, okay, great.
I fucking
number 2.
remember going to see The Conjuring with my dad, who like doesn't go to the movies often, on the Thursday night preview, and it was so much fun. It wasn't packed, but we had like people scattered out, and everyone was just like, "Wow, this is a fun old school throwback to like supernatural horror." That its only goal, no messages, no nothing. It just wants to freak you out and give you a good time and have a few jump scares and feel like you're on a spooky ride. And give kudos to James Wan, who like came from Saw and Insidious and Dead Silence. He can do so many different things within the horror genre, and he killed it. He killed it with The Conjuring. If I can rope in The Conjuring 2, a great 1-2 punch. I mean, The Conjuring 2 again is up there, all timer for me as well. Again, James Wan. So I just think that it's not trying to be anything else than a horror movie, and I respect that. It's what I love. I mean, Vera Farmiga is, again, one of the great scream queens. She has a great scream in this movie. She's awesome. Patrick Wilson. Them two together might be, top 3 favorite couples in the horror genre. They work so well together, and you care about them so much, and you care about the family that they're trying to help. Specifically in the first one, I think the family does really well as also, and I just think that the way he stages his scare set pieces. I remember when she goes in the basement and, he throws the ball up and then she runs up. Oh, fuck, the door shuts on her face. And, want to play hide and clap. I thought that was really good and creepy. It's just old school horror. And I respect it. I love it. And again, I said it earlier, it's the movie that really brought horror back to the mainstream in a big way. And the reason why it's still chugging along and arguably one of the most reliable. It's the most reliable genre right now, theatrically, for sure. And The Conjuring is a big has a big, big, big part of why it is as popular as it is today. So yeah, I love The Conjuring 2, and don't feel bad that it's my number 2. I remember, I'll never forget that theater going experience. This is another one that I think I saw in theaters like 3 times, the OG Conjuring. It's a blast. I love it. It's an all-timer supernatural horror movie for me.
That's awesome. Cool. I'm glad it's so far horror.
I love that we have the same number 1.
So the final Conjuring is just wrapped filming, I believe, or they're in the middle of filming. So shout out
the last rites or something. I think it's
to
called
that. It's going to be the last go around for Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. So talk about one of, like you said, one of horror's favorite couples. I mean, they've been going at it since 2013. They've been making these movies. So really cool. The Ed and Lorraine Warren. So yes, they are definitely legendary. I'm glad it was so high for you. That's awesome. That was number 2. Cool. Okay, let's get into our number 1. Drum roll,
had no
please.
idea. But you know it was mine. You had to know it was mine, before we even. Yeah,
I did. I thought maybe you were gonna sneak like Halloween number 1 just because it's Halloween, but yeah, there was never any doubt for us. But let's not keep the listeners waiting. Number 1 for me, released in 2018, is Hereditary, directed by Ari Aster.
My number 1 is also Hereditary.
Yes.
Fucking all time. In general, it's one of my favorite movies, and it's the most recent movie that's one of my favorite movies of all time. 2018 seems like a long time ago, but it's still recent when you talk about all-time favorite movies. Not even horror, not even 2010s.
It really is, because it was only 6 years ago. But the way I think about this movie and how much it means to me, it feels like it was a lot longer ago. Is it the same for you?
It's the same because, like I said, I usually, when I think about my favorite movies of all time, I have to sit with them for at least a decade. I'm that's fine. But, this just catapulted. It's so fucking perfect.
I know. It
Masterpiece. Toni Collette. Where was her Oscar? It's firing on all cylinders. All of them.
Everyone throws flowers at Toni Collette. And it is my favorite performance in horror, in modern horror, for sure. But shout out to the rest of the cast, too. I mean, it's just an impeccable movie. The family dynamic, it's a family drama wrapped in a horror movie. That's what I love about this movie the most, is that on the surface, it's family grieving and family kind of getting through a tough time. You have the mother, you have the son, Peter, played by Alex Wolff, who does a great job.
Amazing.
He's awesome.
He also should have been nominated.
Yeah. You have the daughter who you think is going to be a main character, Charlie, and I mean,
that jaw drop in the theater. That jaw drop in the theater.
My jaw was through the floor. It was one of the most jaw-dropping experiences I ever had. Seeing this for the first time just absolutely fucked me up. And I don't say that lightly. Yep. There are not many movies that fucked me up where I was sitting there. So I didn't see this in theaters.
Okay.
I
remember I saw it in theaters, and I liked it only dude, I can't wait
I saw this
alone.
I hope
I'm not overhyping it.
I saw this alone when I was living alone at night. I had all the lights out, and it fucked me up, man. I remember sitting on the couch, I was laying on the couch, the credits start rolling, and I my mouth was open, and I was just kind of staring into the darkness, what did I just watch? I knew instantly that this was going to be an all-timer for me. It's not, you said, I have to sit with movies usually, but I knew instantly. I mean, it was so impeccably crafted. And then, I mean, talk about rewatchability. Every time you go back and watch this movie, you pick something up. I mean, I didn't pick up 1% of the little Easter eggs and the clues that he was leaving throughout the movie the first time I watched it, and I still had a great time. But now that I could see all this stuff happening in the background and stuff, it just brings it to another level. I mean, there's so many layers to this movie, and it's all done so perfectly. I mean, Ari Aster, he'll never make a movie better than this. This is. I remember when Midsommar was coming out.
Debut.
I was excited for Midsommar. I know. It's crazy. It's his masterpiece, and it's just. I'll let you talk about it. I can't even really put into words how much this movie means to me.
It's one of my favorite movies, and it's special because I hate the term elevated horror, and I'll never describe a horror movie like that, but it blends art house horror with what you want from a traditional horror so well. And so many movies, you have like some A24 movies that just go a little bit too like art house and pretentious, but not Hereditary. It blends everything that makes a horror movie great, mixed with this like fucked up, bleak, depressing horror. And I think it's also scary to, many people who watch it, not because of what you're seeing on screen, but which is terrifying. I mean, the imagery in this movie is just, it's not a gore fest, but there's some images in this movie that will haunt you and disturb you more than any kill in a Terrifier movie or any kill in these whatever, a Saw trap, because you're like, this is a real family. And it's scary because
Poor
the movie's
Steve.
called Hereditary. Exactly. And it's a metaphor for real life things that you can't control, that are passed down from your family. And that's just a part of life. And it's just making a horror movie out of it. And that's so terrifying, these mental illnesses that are passed down, and these, whatever hereditary traits that we unfortunately have no other option than to just deal with it. And I think that's prime material for a horror movie. And Ari Aster doesn't just like go for it. He fucking just knocks it out of the park like 5 grand slams in a row. Like, I'm gonna fuck you up to see what family shit can do to you. I'm gonna fuck you guys all up. And he did. He fucking did. I'll never forget this scene. Just poor Peter, like for the last, I'm like, this poor kid. I feel so bad for him at the end of this movie. It chills me every time when he runs up to the attic and he almost like reverts back to a kid when Toni Collette's just like fucking slapping her head on the attic door. He's like, mommy, please stop. Like, he's a little kid begging for help from his family, but it's not his family anymore. Like, it's the danger zone, and it just terrifies me. This movie's so good. Everyone kills it. Perfect directing, perfect writing, perfect acting. It's a slow burn, but throughout the movie, you're always going to have these weird scenes where creepy shit happens, and you'll never not be on edge. So I don't see how anyone could be bored of this movie. I think it's a masterclass in horror, suspense, tension, slow burn, how to mix like traditional horror with the psychological and art house. I just think all around it's just a tragic and disturbing, bleak. It's bleak though, so if you guys don't like dark and, it's not a happy movie, there's not really much levity or humor. You might get a giggle here or there, but it's just a dark, fucked up horror movie. And it's my favorite of the 2010s. I didn't have to put a second thought to what my number one would be. I knew it would be Hereditary.
The sense of dread that it has throughout the movie, and then, like you said, it balances everything because you have this slow burn, and then the ending of the movie turns into like this funhouse of sorts, but it keeps that dread. So the ending is jam-packed. At the ending, like, a lot happens, and you're like, holy shit. It's like, oh my God, it's all culminating to this. I will say that the scariest part for me was not even really a horror sequence. It was after, so when Charlie dies, that's really when the movie kicks off, and you're like, we're in it, obviously. But right when she dies, Alex Wolff, I mean...
so good.
We talk about the dinner scene, and we could talk about that afterwards with Toni Collette and Alex Wolff and her monologue. I mean, just all-timer. She should have gotten an Oscar. But Alex Wolff, I really want to highlight when Charlie dies and he is just catatonic, in shock. He drives home and he's in his car. He slowly gets out and he just
so
walks to his bedroom and just kind of lays there and waits for, like, he doesn't obviously tell his parents what happened. The body is still in the backseat of the car. Dude, the sense of anxiety I had waiting, because you knew Annie was going to find the body. You could hear it in the background. You can hear them going to investigate.
First of all, it's so well shot
in the morning.
You just don't see it. You just hear everything.
Oh my God, it's so perfect. You don't see anything. Morning comes, you know they're going to find the body, and you're just waiting. And I'm curled up on the couch. I have so much anxiety, and I'm like, holy shit. But the way, I just want to praise Alex Wolff, the way he played that with his facial acting of someone who was just in shock. It was so believable, and it was so awesome.
And then you just cut to the head. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. And right after that, it like chills me to my bone when like Toni Collette's just on the ground and her husband's just like, I just want to die, and she's like
that
the
guttural
pain, like you could, the only pain that a mom can have when that something like that happens. I'm getting full body chills. I'm just thinking about that scene. And then when she's doing that, you have Alex Wolff in the hallway. He's just kind of like standing there in his shot because like he didn't cause it, but he's just like, oh my God, like I did this, but I didn't do it. It's just everyone's fucked up and the PTSD is on overload in
Oh
that.
my God.
And I also want to highlight the scene with him when he's goes back to school and he's like smoking weed with his friends and he kind of starts having like a panic attack. I really like, again, that's like Tony Collette gets all the praise, but his performance, right, is right up there with her almost. When he's like, just hold my hand, hold my, he's having a panic attack, like he can't breathe. He keeps reliving, obviously, that dramatic event. And then the poor kid, he's just obviously the target for the rest of that movie till the end. Good old Payman. It's just so well executed, whether your favorite genre is slashers or the haunted house stuff, you got to give Hereditary a watch because it's just a masterclass in horror. No matter what subgenre you like, you got to give it a shot. You got it.
Again, it's not just the horror too. It mixes in everything.
Right.
It's a family drama. I mean, I touched on the dinner scene, but that dinner scene, you're just waiting for Annie to just like, because you're on Annie's side. At least I was. I love Peter as a character, but but in terms of Annie, like you feel so bad for her, and you're like you're waiting for her to explode, and then oh man, I gotta watch. I want to watch it again now. We got to cover this. It's such a great winter movie, so we have to cover this soon.
We'll cover it.
Yeah,
it's fire, and it feels like it doesn't feel like acting. It feels like real people.
I want to cover this movie, but just like while we're talking about it, because I'm really curious, what did you think of the ending? Do you like the way it ended, like the very end? You didn't think it got too like hokey, or I don't think so either. I think it.
No, I don't at all, because I think obviously you're giving her the breadcrumbs that the grandma the whole time was part of this cult, and they obviously were worshiping some demon or devil, and obviously you can tell the little hints, like she always wished you were a boy, like she always says like Charlie wishes you were a boy. Like there's always hints. And obviously I knew, I'm like, there's no way that this is going to have a happy ending. I knew that Peter was doomed, but it's so fucking...
Ari Aster needs to do a dark movie again. I know he went towards the light afterwards, but dude, the scene with Annie in the corner of the bedroom on the wall...
Oh, so good.
The first time I saw it, I audibly was like, oh, fuck. Yep. Like, I was like... screaming at the TV. It was just
if you saw it in the theater, because half the audience and saw it right away, and the other half what's everyone like? What's going on? And then when she crawls across, everyone's like, I will never forget that experience because it was so fun watching everyone slowly look in the corner and realize.
So the people on the left side of the theater probably saw it first, and then the other people were that's pretty cool.
It was so good. I'll just never forget. Also, like going back and taking my parents in, they're like, "This is so fucked up." But now it's one of their favorites. Like my dad recommends people to watch Hereditary. I'm like, yes, I did my job. Like this is an all timer. It's so good. I don't want to talk too much because we haven't even covered this yet, but we will.
I know.
So I'm so happy that
we've been saving it. We've been saving it.
Same number one. We have the same fucking number one. We had a lot of overlap, dude. A lot.
Yeah, we did. Okay, there we have it. Why don't we you want to go first? You can just go through your top 10 again.
Okay.
Real quick.
All right, so my number 10 is The Autopsy of Jane Doe. My number 9 is Sinister. My number 8 is the Evil Dead reboot. My number 7 is Doctor Sleep. My number 6 is Insidious, and you can throw in Insidious Chapter 2 if you want there. My number 5 is Black Swan. My number 4 is Scream 4. My number 3 is Halloween 2018. My number 2 is The Conjuring, Conjuring 2. And my number 1 is Ari Aster's masterpiece Hereditary.
Cool. So we have 6 overlaps in our top 10. That's pretty cool.
Fuck.
6 overlaps,
more than half. Wow, okay.
I also thought it was cool. My list is pretty balanced. I have 6 original entries, and I have 4 that are part of a franchise. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that just goes to show you that horror is killing it with both original entries. When people say, all Hollywood does is sequels now, just come to the horror.
They're not watching enough.
Because they're either not watching enough or they're not watching the right genre, because horror is killing it with originals as well as franchises.
Every week there's an OG just as much as a franchise movie coming out. Every week there's original horror coming out.
You could say what you want about the streaming and how streaming has ruined, things for certain people, but it's also enabled a lot of these lower budget creators to put their movies out there. I love it. I mean, I just watched a super original one, Mr. Crockett, on Hulu. I mean, I would have never saw a movie like that if it wasn't.
I watched Carved on Hulu. People
watch Mr. Crockett. I want to hear your thoughts. It's really cool practical effects and stuff. It's really cool.
And watch Carved. It's about a killer pumpkin.
Okay.
It's stupid.
Okay, so my top 10. Starting off with Evil Dead 2013. Number 9 was Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones. Number 8 was It Follows. Number 7, The Conjuring. 6 was Dr. Sleep. And my top 5, The Lighthouse at number 5. Number 4, Ready or Not. Number 3, Sinister. 2, Halloween 2018. And number 1 is Hereditary.
All right.
Okay.
You did good.
Good job. We made it. We made it through. It's always take a
survived.
deep breath. We survived. Yes. We want to hear your guys' list. Who do you agree with more? We'll post a poll in the coming days. You can vote on your favorite list and then comment your list as well. What's your favorite movie from the 2010s? Your favorite horror movie? We definitely would love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can find us at X and Instagram at NeverSplitUpPod. And leave us a review, leave us comments, leave us ratings. That really helps. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. And happy Halloween week. We'll be back for Trick or Treat on Halloween. We're releasing that episode on Halloween, so that's going to be fun. But until next time, I'm Nolan, that's Anthony, and we'll see you later. Bye.